Excellent. This seems to work. Welcome to the HL7 Europe webinar on the HL7 Europe medication, prescription and dispense FHIR IG and its alignment with Xt-EHR. My name is Michael Strubin. I will be your facilitator today. This webinar we're organizing with the support of the projects that you will, whose logos you are seeing here in the bottom line here, the I2X project, the MyHealth MyHands project, the Xt-EHR project, and the xShare project. This is part of a wider series of related to the EHDS FHIR IG ecosystem. This is a webinar series we started earlier this year. I think this is already the second one, and we're quite excited about the huge resonance and interest that we've generated, and we're very glad that you're here with us today. This is our list of presenters. Jojo, Daniel, and Ruth have kindly agreed to join us today. They will each introduce themselves at the beginning of their presentation. I've already introduced myself, so we no longer have to stay on this slide. A couple of housekeeping items here. You are all muted by default, and your video is turned off by default. We invite you to use the chat for comments and questions, also the reactions, the emoticons that you see when you see your the item reaction. It should be on the top of your Teams interface. You can use those as well. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And if we invite you to speak, then we will make you a presenter, and then please turn on your video and tell us who you are. You are already also welcome to tell us who you are in the chat. So you are more likely to get the become an active participant here if you indicate your question already in the chat. This webinar will be recorded, and we'll probably mention that again in the chat. The link to the recording and the slides will be made available, and I can already commit that we're probably going to send those before the end of tomorrow. I'm a believer in really returning these to you very fast. So you should receive an email before, sometime in the course of tomorrow. For those of you who are really impatient, you can already get on HL7.tv. That leads me to my exciting point. I never realized that this is exciting for some of you, but one of the people who commented and responded to our feedback survey said, I've never seen a webinar where we can click on the link. If you click on that link, please feel free to do so, and then the link to HL7.tv will open on your own browser, and you can already browse through recordings and slides from past webinars. And that also leads me to another one. I mentioned the online survey. We're very keen on having feedback from you. So periodically and in the chat, I will share the link to that online survey. We're very keen to have your feedback, if only to have maybe a rating, but you can also use that online survey to give us more substantive feedback. And we're very happy to receive that, because we're measuring that, and we all would like to score high, but we'd like to also score higher in future. So please help us continuously improve these webinars. And with that, I would now like to present the agenda for the webinar today. Jojo will start, Daniel and Ruth will then continue, and then we'll have a discussion and Q&A session, hopefully for several minutes and maybe even longer, and then the final slide and thank yous. But let's get started with Jojo. Jojo, I invite you to take control, and the floor is yours, and I will start engendering some feedback. Jojo, please take control.
Yes, I'm trying to do it. Sorry, I'm not able to see anymore the control part.
Oh, what happened?
That's really bad that.
Well, if that happens, then maybe tell me and I will
let's start and let's move. So please move on your side. So next one, just to speed out a little bit. Who I am, Jojo Candoli, as already presented by Michael. I'm a technical lead of HL7 Europe and also engage with different roles in HL7 International. I had the pleasure to be the facilitator and the author of different CDA and FHIR implementation guide, including also the international patient summary. Next slide. So what I've been asked to do, as also in the other webinar that we have in the past, is to give a little bit of context of the ecosystem of FHIR IG that of which the MPD is part of, and the core part of this webinar will be the presentation that Ruth and Dinah will make later on. So what we are talking about, if there is anyone that do not know what the EHDS data space is about, you know that this recognizes the right for natural person to access and to use, download, and share their own data, and this should happen through a common European format called European Electronic EHR Exchange format. Next one. This format is supposed to be not only, next one, thank you, not only to be for cross-border, but also the capability of sharing, accessing, apply for the exchange across hospital or the access of the patient to their data. Next slide. The result, obviously, the kind of data that can be exchanged are for the time being do not cover any kind of health data, but more or less large part of them include medical test result, including lab report, discharge report, patient summary, medical imaging report, and e-prescription and dispensation. This is the part that we will focus on today. Next one. Obviously, the format will be formally defined by the European Commission through an implementing act that should be published by March next year. But as you know, there are different actors, different initiatives that are engaged in that process. Xt-EHR is that one that is responsible for proposing the specification and the requirement for the format, but there are other groups, stakeholder SDO projects that are contributing to that. Next slide. So how we try to approach, how we are trying to support the health data space. The main idea is to help defining the format through a set of standard-based specification, giving, next slide, next, giving a solution that could be enough flexible in order that cross-border specification, EU-wide requirement, and national level requirement can be taken properly in account. Next. And trying to engage instead of replicating or having parallel work track, but try to engage in a single cooperation work, all the different actors, and to take all the expertise together in order to have the best result possible. Next slide. So where we are today in terms of specification FHIR IG supporting the health data space. For the time being, we have a set of implementation guide. There is an implementation guide is called base and core profile that work together with the extension guide, and this is collect all the profile and asset that are reused across the different categories. Then we have specialized IG, one for the hospital report, one for the European patient summary, one for the laboratory report and imaging report. And next, that we'll try to focus today, that related to the e-prescription and e-dispensation. Next slide. As told, one important thing is that this is not the result of a single group, but take together different stakeholders, different initiatives and also see the cooperation across different SDO. And thanks to that, we have the opportunity to have a large participation in all the different project teams that work on this domain. Next. This slide tries to give an overview of where we are at the different level, considering the standard, global standard that I use, the European standard, and also where we are with the cross-border specification. As will be shown later by Ruth and Daniel, we have a sort of ecosystem of specification in which we have global standard that are, and then we have European standard that comply with that global standard, and then cross-border or national specification that can comply with this European standard. And then that way we can cover the different level of national, European, or cross-border need. So where we are, we have at the European level already published a lab report guide, is already the second version. We are working on the global standard. Now the global standard is at the level of ballot reconciliation. We have the cross-border specification that are already based on the European standard level. Also, HR report, e-prescription, as we will see later, are currently under ballot, and the medical imaging report and the base profile, the ballot already handed, and we are in the reconciliation phase. What I would like to highlight is that the cross-border specification that are specified in FHIR, so lab report, hospital report, imaging report, are currently based on the work that is done at the UPL level. The thing that is interesting to note is that we have very, very recently started some investigational activity for having the representation also for cross-border, for e-prescription and patient summary in FHIR. You know that these two services are currently in operation and are using CDA as base standard. Next slide. In terms of timeline, Ruth and Daniel will give more detail about the e-prescription part, but as I was saying, the ballot for imaging is already handed. There will be a stakeholder consultation Xt-EHR in September. We have ongoing the ballot for the hospital report and the e-prescription, and in parallel for the e-prescription, we'll have the stakeholder consultation, but Ruth and Daniel will give more detail about that. Next slide. Next, sorry. Okay, so great. These are some links, just an overview of the status of the different guide. STU means that is already published as standard for trial use. The two that I already mentioned in ballot with the deadline for the ballot. And here you can find the link where you can have access to this specification. Next slide. Just to explain a little bit that part, as I was saying, the ballot is already handed for imaging report base and the extension part, and we have the good result for that. But next, what I would like to highlight is the last column, in which are reported the number of comments received. And I'm really happy to see that we receive a lot of comment about imaging, about the base profile, and I'm confident that also with your help we can collect enough and proper feedback also for the guide that are currently in ballot, because you need to consider that the large number of comments doesn't mean that it is a bad work. It's totally the opposite. If you have a lot of comment, means that people are interested and people are eager to comment on what has been done. Next slide. Next slide. Since I mentioned some term like ballot or like next, so what the ballot is about? The ballot is a formal process that is in HL7, but also in other contexts, that is used to review and vote specification before to having that publish. There are a specific period of time in this when this should happen, and there are a specific person or member that can vote. However, next slide. However, I believe that is even more important, the capability of having feedback from the user, comment from the user. This may happen anytime by anyone. Next slide. The specification can be done anytime, but next, if you can move a little bit, thank you. Can be done anytime, but if you do during the ballot period, that means that you can help determining what is the vote of your affiliate, and then you can be more easy to have your comment included before the publication. Next slide. How you can do next? How you can do the vote? You can provide your feedback. You can give your feedback by using jira.hl7.org. Anyone could ask if you have not already to have a credential to access there. It's for free, so anyone can do it. You can just go there, click create, and then you can say, I want to ask for a change request, or I can highlight a typo to be fixed, or make a question or a comment, even though I suggest for question and comment to use as a first round chat.fhir.org. You click create, and then if you click specification and you write EU, you will see the list of currently existing IG, and you can select the implementation guide about which you would like to have the comment. In the slide, you can also have the link where you can find more detailed guidance on how to provide feedback. So with that, I would like to give back the floor to Michael and then to go to the core part of that webinar. Thank you.
Giorgio, thank you very much. And I've been doing double work here, trying to monitor the chat here while also advancing your slides. And I'm a big believer and fan of your transitions, but clearly when I have to do your slide movements, then suddenly that's a full-time job. We had a couple of questions here and some feedback on your slides, and I think Ruth and I and others have already navigated there. Would any one of you like to raise your hand and ask a question that we may not have been properly answering or responding to? I think maybe let's go to, I see Kari Heinonen asked a question about slide number 14, and what's the meaning of the European official row here? So let's see what that is. I think am I now on slide 14? This was slide 14.
No, is that one?
This one here.
Yeah, next one.
This
one.
Be patient, yes.
Yeah. No? Okay, it was that with the grid, but in any case, I can answer. So the slide of EU, the previous one, yes, the row in which there is global and European refer to the standard published by standard organization. But since the implementing act is published or specified by the European Commission, anything prevent to assume that it decide not to adopt as is the specification, but they would like to add additional constraint or specify some other thing. So the official is if there is a need for specifying or refining the EU standard for the scope of the data space, then there will be a specific guide that specializes the European standard. For the time being, that need has not been identified, but we left that to recognize the possibility that a specific official guide will be released. Could be Xt-EHR that can decide to do that, could be the European Commission or some other agency. So that reason there is if there is a need, the approach, the design approach allow also to do that, keeping the consistency of the solution.
Good. And while you responded to the question Robert asked in the chat whether we can move to this slide, somebody gave the feedback that we should probably offer a kind of a legend that explains these symbols. So down the road or so we may do this, and if you want to do it really quickly, maybe we can make that or make that edit, and before we share the slides, maybe that's useful for many people. In truth, I had actually thought of this first, and I've never got around mentioning this to you. So I think this is really good feedback, and we'll do that. Okay. I will now click forward to the slides and your beautiful animations. And next time, Giorgio, I have you as a speaker, I will double check and make sure that you can advance your slides so that it will indeed be you who's in control of your slides. Because of course, part of the magic of these transitions is that you are in fact in control, and you know exactly, you created this, you want to speak exactly to them. Good. I don't see any other questions. I just mentioned that if you have any more questions, please raise your hand. There is a button on the top of your console that tells you how to raise your hand. If of course you follow us on an iPad, on a mobile phone, that's different. But let's now move on to the second part, the bigger part of the presentation. And Dan will get to your question in a moment. I would now like to invite Daniel and Ruth to take over and take control of the slide deck. And I think, Ruth, it is you who's doing it, and I hope this time it works. You have decided that you want to actually run your thing together. That's why I put a little red square around you. You will run this together, and I'm waiting for you to take control. Don't tell me that you also cannot take control.
Daniel, do you want to start, and then I will take control over later?
I can try. So
Daniel, there's a button on the top left that takes control. Yes, it works. Daniel, over to you. Please advance the slide, and Ruth goes first. Ruth, and then Daniel. And
that's
then
a nice slide, Daniel. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it? So yes, I am.
Do you want me to? I'll allow you.
Okay. So I am Ruth Lindström. I work in the Estonian e-health agency TEHIK. That's my day job, and then in my free time, I also work for HL7 Europe. And I was one of the co-chairs of the MPD working group who was working on the FHIR implementation guide. And the group had actually the other lead from IHG, José Costa Teixeira, who is not presenting today, but we shared a lot of work, so I just wanted to shout out that name as well. So Daniel, please continue.
Yes, I will try. And this is me. This is Daniel Karlsson. I work at the Swedish e-health agency as a program officer. I happen to be the chair of the e-health network subgroup on semantics, which is like the e-health network subgroups are the ones responsible for the e-health network guidelines, which we'll mention later on. I'm also a member of HL7 Sweden and a member of the HL7 Europe technical coordination team. So let's dive into this presentation. And first, a bit of history. So like we all know now that the European Health Data Space Regulation has passed into effect this year, but there has been about 20 years of history of e-health, and including a directive in 2012 about recognition of prescriptions for medicinal products in the European Union between member states. There has been an EPSOS project developing specifications and also an infrastructure for allowing electronic prescriptions and dispensations to be shared cross-border. And that went into operation already in 2019, and towards the end this year, the European Health Data Space is on everyone's lips. So this is the way that we have worked with the European EHR exchange format, which is a part of the EHDS regulation. So let's see, yes, there. So in the article of the EHDS, which describes the format, there are 3 parts. So it's harmonized data sets, it's coding systems and values, I think it's literally, and technical interoperability specifications. But during the work and in operationalizing this, we have worked with data sets, which is a simplified form of representation, logical information models. Here we have applied the FHIR mechanism for representing these. And then we have had a collaboration between the extended EHR joint action and HL7 Europe to develop FHIR implementation guides. And for this particular area, MPD or medicinal products and dispense, there has been R4 and R5 FHIR IGs developed. And we have started as a basis in the EF network guidelines, and there are now guidelines for all the priority categories of the EHDS, which have served as a baseline. And then extended EHR has developed logical information models, which have been shared with HL7 Europe, and HL7 Europe, and in collaboration with extended EHR and other stakeholders, including other EU projects, have developed these guidelines, these implementation guides. Sorry. There will be, at least this is the way we interpret the situation going forward. There will be some specifications that relate to this format, but as we know or understand the regulation, member states may apply additional constraints, or as long as they don't interfere with the format. And we also know from the regulation that national and cross-border regulation can be do not have to be completely the same, as long as the transformation can be made in the national contact point and sharing health data cross-border. So we will see variants of this diagram going forward, but we will now try to describe a bit about the scope and specifically regarding electronic prescriptions and electronic dispenses. So as you can see in this slide, the first part, the first table, is from the regulation itself. So the regulation refers to the Directive 2011-24, and that's the Patient Rights in Cross-Border Healthcare Directive. And there it says it's a prescription is for a medicinal product, or for a medicinal device. But as you can see, EHDS limits this to medicinal products. And also, member states shall ensure that these the pharmacies that are in the member states, and that includes also online pharmacies, are able to dispense these prescriptions and also share back the information about those dispenses. There are some parts that the EHDS does not cover, or does not specifically cover, at least. So the internal healthcare prescription workflow, what happens in healthcare settings, the hospitals and so on, are not covered. So things like draft prescriptions, which are unlikely to be shared, are not specifically in scope of the regulation. At least that's our interpretation. Prescription repositories, we know that there is some infrastructure that is needed in the member states to manage how prescriptions and dispenses relate and are managed. But that infrastructure is not the concern of the regulation. But on the other hand, when developing implementation guides to support the work, it is not only to support the sharing of information according to the EHDS, but there are other use cases that are also important to member states and to implementers of these specifications. So with that, I would leave the floor to Ruth. See if you could take control.
Yes. So what we did when we started the MPD group was to actually look into what countries are doing right now. And e-prescription and e-dispensation is a priority category, and it's kind of estimated as the easy use case because, I mean, it's been there for a long while. What we actually see is that most countries already have their very stable prescription systems in place. So it's actually not that simple for them to switch to a completely new format compared to like not having anything and building a new thing. But what is happening right now quite a lot is that people are building FHIR facades or FHIR interfaces to their existing prescription systems, and they're doing some sort of translation between FHIR and their legacy system. It's not very polite to call it legacy, but that's what I just did. Another thing that is happening is that a lot of countries are working on medication overviews or medication lists. And that also, the implication of that, or what we assume from that, is that the e-prescription and e-dispensation as such are actually going to the background from the clinical data, and more work or more medication planning is happening on the medication overviews, and the prescription and dispense are more like logistical items. So it's kind of shifting a little bit the focus from the prescriptions to the medication overview. And also most countries who responded to our service, they're using FHIR R4, and some don't use any FHIR at all, but we also had some R5 implementers. So we do have users for our R5 specification as well. And here's a quick, because we get so many answers about this, it's slightly off topic, but I just wanted to put that slide in. So the difference between prescription list and medication overview is that you can have a lot of prescriptions, but actually they can all be like the same treatment. So if you have a continuous treatment of something for 10 years, you get hundreds of prescriptions. But you want to see in medication overview that this patient has been on this drug for 10 years. You don't actually care how many prescriptions have been prescribed. And also start a new prescription maybe from that line, not from the previous prescription. And active prescription list is already like an actionable thing. That's a completely different use case. So we had the HL7 Europe IHE International Joint Working Group, and IHE working group is actually working on a global standard, and the IHE work is a Gemini project together with HL7 International. So it's basically IHE International creating a specification approved by HL7 International as well. So we had a very good representation of countries in that group, and also not just a number of countries, but the SDOs. We had IHE International, we had HL7 Pharmacy involved, we had all the European projects, and also MyHealth at the EU. And we got to sort of escalate a lot of the questions and problems that we had directly to HL7 Pharmacy or other working groups in HL7, which was very helpful. And the difference between what we did there was that the MPD that we are presenting today has European scope. IHE was working on global scope. We were focusing on EHDS, and IHE obviously has a much wider focus. Daniel already showed a slide about the restricted scope of EHDS, which excluded like the hospital use cases. It was just prescriptions that are dispensed in a pharmacy, but IHE is working on the hospital use cases as well. And we are right now focusing on content profiles, and IHE also had transactions. Just to make it like really fuzzy, or maybe clearer, it depends how much you knew already before. So the problem with standards is that if you create an implementation guide and you make it like hanging from thin air, like it's just hanging, it's not related to anything else. It's really simple to create an implementation guide like that, but unfortunately it doesn't give you any interoperability. So when you create a new guide or a new standard, it has to fit into the whole ecosystem. And this is what we see here. When you talk about EHDS, so the EHDS has the data sets like the logical models in extended EHR. It also has the technical specifications, which would be the HL7 Europe FHIR IG. And also it talks about the cross-border data exchange. So MyHealth at the EU cross-border specification also kind of fits into the EHDS scope. Now, if you be talking about extended EHR scope, which is the project we mentioned many times before, who is creating the proposal for implementing acts to European Commission. So this one is responsible for the logical models and the FHIR implementation guide, but they are not right now creating their own FHIR implementation guide, but they are creating it together with HL7 Europe. So the logical models from extended EHR should go together with the HL7 Europe FHIR implementation guide as the proposal. HL7 Europe scope is like much smaller. It's just the MPD that we saw today, or we're still yet to see, but believe me, it's there. And then the HL7 Europe and IHE joint group was working on the HL7 Europe FHIR implementation guide and the IHE global implementation guide. So it's been a lot of work going in different directions. You can also see there's R4 going to some national specifications. R5 would go into another national specifications. And what we see in the end is that we will not get rid of transformation. It's not likely that you can just send one national message or prescription to another country without any transformation. So the MyHealth at EU cross-border specification probably is much more restricted. And when you send a national prescription to another country, it will go through some sort of transformation. But as we are all connected, all these implementation guides are all connected, they're all deriving from each other, they're all depending on each other. It should be much easier than what we see today. So, and what is in the MPD implementation guide? Again, I remind you, you can click the link, but you can also click it a little later. The implementation guide does not have the models in the extended EHR, but the models are coming from the extended EHR, and we created FHIR profiles for all those models. There is a link in the implementation guide when you go to the models, but there are also mappings for all the models. So for every model that is, like let's say technology agnostic, it doesn't say if it's FHIR R4, R5 or something else, or maybe CDA. It's just a logical model, and there is a mapping to FHIR R5, and there's a mapping to FHIR R4. So you should be able to follow how it works between different versions. And the profiles also use extensions from IHE. I forgot to say that. So terminology requirements is actually, somebody asked in the chat if what would we expect feedback on. So one of the things that is very difficult to ask feedback for is terminology requirements, because whatever we choose as a strong requirement, we will get no, 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 we don't like that, but we don't get the whole picture. So what would people expect to see in the requirements? So if you have like more time to analyze and think about it, then I think terminology requirements is really something that we would expect to still settle. Right now, we have in the eHealth network guidelines and in the extended EHR logical models, we have the preferred code systems. And these were basically the ones that were used by many countries or were easy to map to. And some of them, like EDQM, is clearly like with a regulatory background rather than clinical background. So MyHealth at EU would have required value sets. They would have their own very strict specification anyway. But the HL7 Europe MPD, the FHIR implementation guide, is also for national use. And we can provide recommendations, but we don't know how strict we should go there. So right now, it mostly has example value sets. Another work item that we spent a lot of time on was multi-item prescription. So 11 countries out of the 18 that answered the survey said that they allow multiple items on one prescription. If you look at FHIR medication request resource, it only allows one medication per request. And then we found many different approaches in national IGs how to solve that. And also we know that current MyHealth at EU specification only allows one item. So we went back and forth many times, I think, trying to provide the guidance how to make multi-item prescriptions happen in Europe, because we don't want to break anybody's current systems. We provided some solutions. We don't have like one size fits all solution right now. And that's another thing that you can actually give feedback to. If your country has multi-item prescriptions, you can see which of the proposed solutions fits for your use case and say like, we would prefer this one, or we would prefer this to stay open so that every country can choose their way of creating multi-item prescriptions, because these solutions should work together as well. Multi-item dispense is very rare, so we did not cover that. Another thing that we were asked many times is that how does this work align with ISO IDMP, because the regulatory agencies are switching to ISO IDMP and everybody keeps talking about ISO IDMP all that time. What we can say that as long as you have ISO IDMP identifier or any other identifier or code for the product, from our side, from the profile side, it works. It works like IDMP identifier, some other identifier. The problem is the availability of the identifiers. What we want to achieve cross-border is that you also include the description of the medication item on the prescription. And there we wanted to make sure that that we would actually follow the IDMP data model a little bit, because if the regulatory agencies are providing data with that model, it's easier for countries to use such model. But the data model is really big. So the picture there is IDMP representation for a very simple product, and this is definitely too much for a prescription. Also, IDMP does not have any terminology inbuilt. So another terminology question is if we should consider EMA SPOR for also eHealth, SMS and the referential, so all the EMA terminology. So, like I said, any IDMP concept fits into medication, but there are also many other things or many other representations available. So virtual products are definitely a thing for e-prescriptions. And we aim to support everything that people can come up with. So we support the very simple use cases where you only have one code from a terminology, and that's your old representation of medication, and everybody just goes and to the terminology server and looks up what the product actually is. But some other countries have all the information on the prescription, including complex packages like this one here, and we do provide a solution for that as well. And we made many requests to HL7 Pharmacy to also cover this use case. So you can see some examples there. So if you click the links, the concepts are explained in the implementation guide, and the examples are hopefully helpful. So the open topics. Terminology, mentioned many times already. Workflow, right now it's not covered almost at all. So IHE covers workflow. EHDS, for EHDS, it's out of scope. But something that's out of scope for EHDS doesn't necessarily mean that we must not touch it. So we can have some workflow recommendations at least, but we don't know exactly what to cover or what the expectation is, or if we should even add anything extra compared to what IHE already has. So also API expectations, search parameters. We have what's available in the FHIR core specification, but should we have some common European search parameters as well? Dosage is a very hot topic, how to work with dosage so that it would not break all the existing systems, because almost no countries have implemented the full dosage data structure that is available in FHIR, but we don't want to restrict that either. So any ideas, if you've solved that problem in your country, for example, then we are very happy to hear your recommendations or feedback on it. And of course, like any additional guidance or any parts that are existing but insufficient, we are very happy to learn from your opinions and experiences. So I would hand over to Daniel if you would like to close the session with what's happening now and what will happen in the future.
Daniel, you're on mute.
Yeah, you might want to unmute.
I tried that now. Hope it works. As have been mentioned before by Giorgio and others, there is an ongoing balloting of the HL7 Europe medicinal product and dispense prescription dispense implementation guide, and it is going on until August 31st. So, like, feedback through HL7 Europe will be very welcome on the implementation guide. In parallel to this, the extended EHR is having a targeted stakeholder consultation running from the same date, but for 2 weeks more until the 15th of September. So there is a deliverable, a text document that is part of this consultation. The logical models from extended EHR, which have also been mentioned a few times here, are also part of that consultation. And the HL7 Europe FHIR IG, the one in the first bullet point, is also part of that consultation. So it is actually part of two consultations. But there has been an agreement between the joint action extended EHR and HL7 Europe that we will do some joint reconciliation so that there will be feedback floating in both directions from HL7 Europe and extended EHR. And there are links here that would allow you to participate. If you so extended EHR is a targeted stakeholder consultation, and that means that It's by invitation, so you should get to talk to your member state participant in extended EHR if you think that you should be on that list and have a discussion there. So we'll jump to next slide. So the timeline. So now we're in 2025, and we have sent out these implementation guides and this material on consultation and balloting and so on. And in 2026, the extended EHR joint action will provide its final deliverables. That will be the proposals for that will include proposals for the format and the requirement related to the format to the European Commission. And then I think this is also something that you know, in 2027, the implementing acts come into force, and then in 2029, then all EHR systems and information shared from EHR systems must conform to the e-prescription, e-dispensing specifications that are laid down in the implementing acts. But during basically now and 2027, there are negotiations between the Commission and the member states to agree on what will be in the implementing acts. So the extended EHR will provide a proposal, but it is the member states together with the Commission that decides on what will actually go into the implementing act. So that we will see during 2026 and 2027. So that was the end of this part of the presentation, and with that, I will hand over the slides to Michael again. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Daniel. I think there's a lot of questions and discussions. We had a lot of information that we downloaded to our audience. Nobody is yet raising their hand to want to ask a formal question, and we will give you a chance, but nobody is so far coming to it. Let's take a look at the questions in the chat, but also maybe for a moment, let's go back one more time to this slide here, which is really important. A lot of stuff is coming. Wait a second. I now need to take control. I went back. Am I in control? Do you all now see the slide for next steps? A lot of stuff is happening here and will be happening before 2027. I think, as was pointed out, a lot of elements, additional elements in addition to the technical specifications will be developed. The Commission, the Xt-EHR project will deliver their recommendations, as you just mentioned. I believe that I've heard also that the Commission is committed to offering a formal public consultation on the specifications, so the implementing acts will not be handed down as a complete surprise when they will be delivered in 2027. Many of us have heard that there's also a support center being built for the EHDS that will deliver assistance specifications. There's also the xShare project that is delivering more information on the EHR exchange format. And while I'm talking, there is nobody yet there who actually wants to raise a formal question. So let me see whether I should put for yes. Georgia, thank you. And clearly, yes, this is not a webinar on compliance. So what we pointed out here, that EHRs must conform to the EPED specifications, to these specifications and also all the other priority categories of data. this we have not yet formally figured out how the Commission will ensure and the member states will ensure conformity. There will be a testing bed. Earlier this week, there was an initial presentation from the Commission on the digital testing environment. So that will, of course, be further released. We heard lots of information about how this is going to transpire. But yes, indeed, furious discussion in the chat. Nobody wants to raise any questions. So I would suggest, Ruth, would you like Giorgio? Ruth, you raised. Yes, please. Ruth.
Yes, I can just, instead of typing in the chat, I can answer the questions that I was typing answers to.
Very good.
So the question is, there are two questions. So one is that by 2029, all European countries are required to, what was the exact word? To adopt these specifications. So, like, nominally, the EHDS regulation says the conformance must be guaranteed for the new product placed on the market. But I think, yes, Giorgio is right when, like, in reality, it means yes. So at least on a national level, you need to conform. MyHealth.eu is also hopefully switching to FHIR implementation guide, if that is the format, because it was many questions here were about do we know what the format will be and how can it be that we don't know. So this is what it is. Even European Commission doesn't know yet, because the member states, well, first of all, extended EHR needs to officially make the proposal, and then the member states need to approve it, and there will be negotiations, there will probably be changes. So nobody knows right now. And this is how we live. But the rules apply to everyone. So if you're, yeah. So if we need it, we bend the rules. Somehow life always finds the way. The next one was, I lost it. So could you cover 100% of the extended EHR model with FHIR R4 and R5 resources? Yes, because FHIR allows you to create extensions. So that's the trick we used. But right now, the whole data model is covered in our FHIR implementation guide. There are a few extensions. There was some very fiery discussions about classification and name, if they should be separate elements or if they should be in the code element. And we left it open and also addressed this optionality somewhere in the known issues. Must be a reference somewhere there. So somebody wants to use name in a separate element, they are allowed to do so.
But maybe if I can chime in,
Yep.
when you mentioned that member states will, of course, have to comply with the EHR exchange format, but industry will have to do the same. So all products that are put on the market after 2029 will have to comply to the EHR exchange format as well. So a lot of vendors out there, makers of EHR exchange EHR systems, will have to comply with this as well as vendors who claim conformity. So obviously there's a lot of interest out there. I think I'm now going to move to bring this to a close here. I have a final slide here in terms of next steps here. So again, I've touted this. Please complete your the feedback survey if you can. We will send the slides and the recording. We will share those on HL7.tv. I have a couple of extra links here on how to become involved, how to respond to the consultations. So please respond to those as well. We invite you, of course, to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our news and updates. I want to close by thanking once more Giorgio, Ruth, and Daniel, not in this order, Ruth, Daniel, Giorgio, for your wonderful work on presenting and putting together this webinar here. This has been really appreciated. Please join me in at least now giving us an applause here. You can do this by pushing react here, and then you can applause. Thank you so much. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for coming, and we will discuss as we just proceeded, and want to thank all of you speakers, attendees, as well as those who couldn't join us. Thank you so much. And with that, goodbye and have a good rest of the afternoon and rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye.